You are listening to another Third Coast Nerds podcast. Sit back and listen as we share the legend of Inky Binky Bonky.
Do you know the legend of Inky Binky Bonky?
I want to know the legend of Inky Binky Bonky, apparently.
His father had a mule.
I like the way she says Inky Binky Bonky.
Yeah.
At first, I'm like, what is she talking about? What did Chad try to pull off this time?
That's another from the Kyle collection.
Oh, yeah? Nice.
I remember there being a different spin on it. Multiple spins on it. I don't remember fully.
The thing you initially suggested was that we have her say the entire chorus of bubblegum in a dish. And I was like, we can just reference Inky Binky Bonky because no one remembers that at all.
No.
Yeah.
All I remember is I typed it out in quotes. I think you should have just copy and pasted.
When you receive something in quotation marks, just enter it and go.
Yeah. But to do the entire thing, it would have taken like 45 seconds. Bubblegum in a dish.
Yeah. We'd had to put her like
Long
on
pause.
12 speed, so
Yeah.
that could have been very loud and annoying.
No,
Yeah.
I think we should do it, but then we should just have like shots, and we take shots together until she stops. It would be a drinking game. We'll call it like Drunk Cast.
You do realize you're the only one that lives here, right? The rest of us have to drive places after this.
I like how
I got multiple couches and a guest room.
Right?
bunk couches. I like how more and more though that your involvement in the podcast pretty much centers around you getting drunk on the podcast. Like that's your
That's my new thing. I like
the
it.
continuing mission.
New thing.
On the podcast. It was intermittent. Now it's
It's the new thing for the podcast. It's the normal thing for 2 in the afternoon
For my life.
My name is Kyle, and I have a problem.
Get whatever you want to talk about out of the way.
Yeah,
Because we're going to kick you out of the room pretty
at
quick.
some point.
Oh, y'all just tell me when.
We do have a guest in the room. She may be eclipsed by Neil or Neil's mic.
Yeah,
or
I keep moving,
parts.
and she keeps
Yeah.
also moving.
Yeah.
We should not give her a chair on a swivel. We did not
Wait.
learn our lesson last time.
Maybe when I leave the room, you should move her here. That way,
And she can't get between
there we go.
She'll hide behind your laptop.
Right?
You have to restart your laptop.
Nah, no, I'm not going to use it. I got nothing. I got nothing.
So you did watch Arrow.
Yes.
Okay.
They better not kill her off. That's all I got to say. She's my
Okay.
favorite.
Well, spoilers. If anybody else has been interested in Arrow, yeah.
They don't know who.
Her.
Yeah.
Her. There's multiple
there are
hers.
quite a few females.
Hell,
on
some
that
people might
show.
think that's Oliver.
There
I don't
are
know.
quite a few females on that show.
Yeah.
Yeah, but significant enough
A
for you to
little
care
bit too
about.
much girl power, so
There's at
maybe
least
they're
3.
looking to take one out.
There's
Gotta
only
put it
one.
Back out again.
I like how the woman on the podcast is like, you need to kill these bitches off.
There's only one of them that I want to keep around. So
Which one's that?
Willow. You don't know which one Willow is, do you?
No.
Speedy.
She looks like a druggie.
Yeah, Felicity's character doesn't mean anything to me. Pretty much, if they're in a relationship and we have to deal with that, they're on my you can kill them list. So right now, she's the only one really.
Every time they pan to her, it looks like she just finished an injection. Like, I don't know what it is. The makeup artist for her is just like phoning that shit in. Literally, it's like, no, you look great. Just go.
Yeah, like you're a superhero. You got brought back from the dead or like partially dead. We're just gonna make you look like heroin chic the entire rest of the show. Like you're gonna go Cobain any second.
Yeah.
Oh no,
So-
no Cobain.
So I'm not a fan of her because then she's kind of a bitch.
Yeah, no, that's what I like about her.
That
You
was
would.
primarily that was my complaint. Like in season 1, I was like, she just complains too much.
She didn't have a good enough storyline until she became whatever she is. I don't even know her name.
She was like Anakin in Star Wars, just bitchy.
He's trying to get as much Star Wars talk in now before he's forced to leave the room.
Well, that's why I talk Star Wars too. There. Easy.
Well, yeah, but you talked about like the version of Star Wars or the version of the character that no one cares about anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I tried to watch that
The version we
To
want to
get-
forget.
to get prepared, and I couldn't do it. Like I did more dishes than movie watching, and I don't like doing dishes. I put it on. I was like, oh, I can't do it. Jar Jar's talking. Like,
Jar
Yeah.
Jar Jackson.
Oh, no. No.
I think it makes it more. I think it's way more amusing if you watch it with that in mind. Like it's not
I'm
a
not gonna try
CGI
it
character.
again.
Yeah, but just in passing, like even like a 1 minute YouTube clip, you're like, "How's going to be Michael Jackson?"
I wonder what they're going to do for the ears.
What
They're
for-
going to put giant ears on Michael Jackson?
I don't. It probably would have been something like The Wiz. You know,
The Wiz.
yeah, hop on down Yellow Brick Road.
Yeah, no. There's no. I'm just glad it didn't happen.
I think that would have been a better version still.
This is not a spoiler, but pretty much the only thing I took away from the movie is I really want to build a BB-8.
There's a DIY on the YouTubes already. Some Canadian made an awesome one.
There's like
same
an
size.
80-page thread on the RTF right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
like,
with complete like no, I don't have to watch a video. I could just download the files to print one of my own.
Yeah.
oh,
like,
no,
I can
he
build-
didn't actually print it. He used like
His is life size.
yeah.
Not
His is
just-
like
So are these.
These are
You're gonna print a life size one with your printer?
You print them in pieces and then assemble them.
well.
Interesting.
This was like
Yeah.
this
a lot of
for the
printing.
giant ball on the bottom. There's
Well,
only two
anything you do
pieces.
is a lot of printing.
Yeah.
There's only 2 pieces on the bottom, so like sometimes it may be cheaper to not 3D print. Go to the hardware store and get something a little bit cheaper.
I don't know because the only thing 3D printing costs me is time. As far as plastic goes, like to print off one hemisphere, it'd be like a couple of dollars. Like that plastic's not expensive at all.
Which hemisphere?
And technically, aren't there 4 hemispheres? Because there's two parts. So I guess 3.
Yeah. Well, basically, what you have to do is you have to print this in like pie pieces. So you're going to print off like an eighth of one side of it, and then you assemble it that way. But there's like places you can source. One of the guys on the RPF, he has a link to some source where you can buy like blown acrylic domes, and then you basically epoxy those pieces onto the acrylic dome. So that way you have like a perfectly spherical base. Because if you're going to actually make it roll, like it's down to like here's the stuff you have to assemble to put inside of it. Here's the gyroscopes you have to buy. Here's the motors. Like the whole thing. Like you build a legit working BB-8, and he had it like whatever the video that he had of his, which was on tested.com.
You didn't need a video though.
What's that?
You said you didn't need a video.
Yeah, it was on the forums. You can't get out of this room fast enough. I swear to God. So guess who dies in Star Wars?
It'd be very, very easy.
I can get to your car faster than you can with a knife to your tires.
Insurance
Better
claim. I
yet,
get a new
guess
truck.
who Kylo Ren really is?
Your mom?
He's a new member of Nine Inch Nails.
Oh no.
Emo as hell. So anyway, we're gonna talk about anything else that Kyle's gonna talk about.
I think y'all just really want to talk Star Wars, and I wish I would have made it today, but I didn't get to. There was only
I don't know how you show up for work at 11 o'clock and not go see Star Wars before that.
I was at work before 11.
How early? Before?
Not going to talk about that, but it's before 11.
10:58 is still 10 before 11,
It
right?
is. It is.
Not talking about that. No, I mean I was there just pretty much around my normal time.
So anyway, the stuff that you can talk about or we can talk about, you know, financially, probably one of the most successful films of all time or destined to be.
Oh yeah, I mean it's was,
on track to hit
almost
that really quick.
600 million on opening weekend. Of course, you know those numbers are inflated from the 90s because opening weekend in the 90s meant Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah.
Now they're like
Now it's like Wednesday night.
Wednesday night,
Yeah.
Thursday, so they get twice as much time. But
Yeah.
still, I mean, it's the biggest movie of the year, and it very well could take out Jurassic World.
I thought it already did.
It did Jurassic World.
Did it beat Titanic yet?
It's had the biggest opening weekend of all time.
Yes.
okay, so it
Opening
beat Titanic
weekend.
for that.
Yes.
Titanic
Well,
got knocked off a
Titanic
while
didn't
back.
I don't know if
So what's
Titanic's
Or
is
is it
how
like
much it
there?
made
No, it's
overall. not
Avatar
was,
may still
Avatar.
have that record.
Yeah.
Avatar's the one that had the biggest opening, I think.
But I like how James Cameron is like being bitchy behind the scenes about the whole thing. He's like, I'm still working on Avatar sequels right now. So you have your fun. Avatar's going to beat it.
Yeah, it says 529. Yeah, 529 million, the biggest worldwide opening of all time.
Yeah.
It
Which it was gonna do.
Well, you know, it beat out Jurassic World. Now, you are not a fan of either.
No, I mean, what for like Star Wars?
Star Wars and Jurassic World for the most part.
It's not something that I can watch a second time.
Really? I've already seen it like 6 times.
What, Star Wars?
No. Jurassic World.
Jurassic World?
Yeah.
No, Jurassic World was a pile of dog shit.
Wouldn't it be dino shit?
Dino shit. Yeah. With Jeff in the first one, where like they're going to the Triceratops poop. He's like, that's a big pile of shit.
So in the past year, or maybe year and a half, because I'm not good with time, the top 2 movies that have grossed over $1 billion combined worldwide on opening weekend, you don't like.
Yeah, I mean, like the stuff that makes money, the popcorn movies.
You make it a point not to like those, huh?
No, it's not a point. Like,
He doesn't like popcorn. He likes Whoppers.
Dude,
Do you like kettle corn?
I was on board with Jurassic World until the pterodactyls and the entire third act. I was like, what the fuck did this turn into?
You don't like flying dinosaurs?
Because like they were doing okay. I was on board with the Raptor Whisperer. I was on board. I was following along. I was like, okay, that makes sense. Training animals, all that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then we got to the third act and freaking Parks and Rec, whatever his name is, Chris
Pratt.
Dude face. Yeah, Chris Pratt. He's hauling ass through the woods or the forest on a motorcycle, nary a hair out of place. Apparently the bike has the best suspension in the world because he ain't moving. And here's the dinosaurs just keeping up with him. Like, it's the storytelling went off the rails after the damn pterodactyl thing. It's like, why are the pterodactyls just attacking people all of a sudden? They have no motivation to do so.
There's
They're
mental
hungry.
communication.
It's just for a bullshit action sequence that didn't need to be there.
I enjoyed that action sequence.
Well,
Yeah.
technically, nothing needed to be there. It's all for the action and entertainment.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm like,
He wanted a documentary, damn it.
no, not at all, not at all. But you can have an action movie and still tell a compelling story.
Die Hard.
Die
and
Hard.
that's-
Well, you got to think
That's
about,
exactly what I'm thinking. I was like, I'm not
going
gonna
to
mention
think
Die
about
Hard.
the actions of any bird when you come near their nest, and they just got intruded upon by a dinosaur that ran through the glass, and you don't think they're going to act a little bit haywire when they fly out and see all these beings running around?
They slightly explained it to the big dinosaur. I was talking to him. He was controlling. He was saying, "This is what you're supposed to be doing."
Yeah, and that was like, wow, that's plot hole filled with bullshit.
They created a dinosaur. So
That was
why
kind
can't
of
they
the
create a dinosaur that can talk to other
Central
dinosaurs?
focal
Like
point
that makes
of the
sense.
movie was them doing these experiments and making the dinosaur smarter than it should have been.
I mean, last
and
time
then they
people
used
did.
other parts of other dinosaurs' DNA, so it was able to communicate in different ways. I mean, it's not a long stretch. I mean, well, the whole movie's a stretch, but when you're already going by them bringing back dinosaurs after the events of the first movie, second and the third, then you
I'm
have
not even
to
going
give
down.
it
I'm not
a
even going down the
little bit
science of
leeway.
it. I'm not even going down the science of it.
Silence.
It's
The silence of the Jurassic World.
Welcome to Thirst Coast Nerds. I'm too tired to talk. Too tired to actually get words out right now.
Have some lemonade.
Yeah.
But I do think it's entertaining that both of those movies, Jurassic World and Star Wars, are
Would you like some more wine?
quote unquote remakes or continuations or a rehash almost, if you will, with a new storyline or, kind of things stirred up of movies that came out, years ago again. And
Yeah.
$1 billion between the two in less than a week is ridiculous.
But yeah, all kidding aside, I mean, I really did like the movie, but it did become a little cluttered at the final act.
Talking about Jurassic World,
yes, so
Yeah.
a little bit of unbelievableness at the final act, but I still was able to enjoy it.
I call
But a
that the
little bit of that
encore.
side.
First two were the first two scenes, and then the encore was that, and the encore was just crazy.
Well, you could have had all your action. You could have had all your resolution. You didn't have to try to pack in 300 things that didn't need to be there. It's like,
And it's kind of what they seemed to do. They were trying to pack in a ton into that final act, and they were trying to make sure they were setting up for their sequel.
Yeah.
They wanted to start a whole new franchise with it, so they were trying to put way too much into one movie. But I still liked it for what it was because it's Jurassic Park.
I liked it for the first 2/3.
Well, I think both of them. I was a fan of both of the originals, or
The Lost World and Jurassic Park.
well, just Jurassic Park, the whole trilogy.
You liked the
I
third
mean,
one?
I'm a fan of all of them.
I like the first
some
two.
more
The
than
third
others.
was-
But you got to remember, my favorite author while I was in high school was Michael Crichton.
Yeah, no, I still have like 4 of the
And-
books in there.
Yeah, see, he applauds because Michael Crichton
Michael
was
Crichton's
amazing.
that good.
So
we
but
got a
now,
Skeeter Dactyl in the room.
Right. I thought they both did a really good job of paying homage to where they came from and set a new franchise off.
But they didn't do it with any sort of efficiency for the franchise or efficiency in storytelling. And you compare to what you think about the third act in the first Jurassic Park movie. It was very crisp. We have a very clear. We have a very clear point we have to get to.
That movie can be watched today and still be an awesome movie. And it's 20 years old?
But the idea that you have to set
Yeah,
up.
the first movie was done perfectly. You can't even compare Jurassic World to the first one.
Not at all.
But it did top the next two that came
Yeah,
in
I mean,
series.
it's the second best Jurassic Park. And I will go out and say that I think this one's probably close to second best.
I'm just very
of the Star
afraid
Wars.
of what they're going to do with it now that they've said that they're going to put out at least 2 or 3 more.
Which one are we talking about?
Jurassic.
Okay,
Jurassic
yeah.
World.
Yeah, Jurassic. But that's the thing. That's the epidemic right now in all of filmmaking is you're trying so hard to set this franchise. The original Jurassic Park series was a franchise, but that first movie could stand alone. And I think so many filmmakers, all the studio execs are sacrificing solid standalone movies with the idea that now it's we got to make it like an HBO miniseries, but each episode's 2 hours long.
I see that, and I think if done right, when you look at the Marvel universe and some of the other universes that are all trying to do that now, we've even talked about, I don't know what universe it is that's going to have a lot of the grim fairy tale type ones that are going to come back out. But it seems to me like the first one where they're introducing the character and the solo movie for each person are on spot, for the most part.
Yeah.
The second one doesn't need to be made in most cases.
Yeah.
And then when you try to fit in the characters from those into their group movies, like you had the Avengers and things like that, those can have that same feeling that you think like Scene 3 have Jurassic World, because they're trying to fit in 10 different solo characters and get so much action and so much stuff done.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I like they're doing Civil War, because instead of having 8 versus a big bad guy like Thanos or whoever, plus his second in command versus all the Avengers, it kind of splits them up in Captain America. So
For the first
they don't have
half.
to introduce. Yeah, there is a bad person. You do have a villain.
Yeah.
But I think that one, it may be interesting to see how it kind of pits the cast against each other. So you don't have to worry about the initial character development for the villain and whatever new person or 2 or 3 you're going to add to it.
Well, then too, I can't remember which writer or artist in the history of Marvel was making this comment, but he was talking about we don't need to see Peter Parker's origin story on screen again.
Yeah.
Everyone knows who Spider-Man is.
I agree.
It's the same with Batman. It's the same with all of them. If you're going to reboot a series, drop you into the middle of the shit as it is now. You don't have to rehash what his motivations are.
Yeah.
Everyone knows from the get-go what they are.
I agree.
So don't insult the audience by taking them on this trip. They've already been down on with Spider-Man. It's been
Screw all
twice
that.
now.
I mean, they shouldn't even redo it again. They should have used the guy from the last freaking movies.
Yeah, I completely agree.
That was the best ones they have come out with, and
That's
then
the one
they
where,
just
like,
want to
they
go and
emailed
start it over again 2 years later.
Well,
Like some
Are you
producer
kidding
was talking
me?
shit about him via email or something.
In that
Yeah,
whole
one of the Sony-
thing
yeah, one of the
where
Sony
there's
execs.
the hack, they
Yeah.
have been talking a lot of mess about him because he's a very private guy and he doesn't like to do any of the promotion stuff. And I don't know, I guess they talked a lot of crap about him. He's a little bit of a diva guy.
Yeah.
And,
well, heaven help an actor
he
if he
didn't
doesn't
like
want to
it.
sit in a 4-week-long press junket in the middle of fucking China to sell a movie. The movie's going to sell itself. You don't have to have so what was it like playing Peter Parker?
Everywhere you go.
400 journalists. How
See,
was it
I
like
think
playing
if
Peter
you've
Parker?
already answered the question, you should be able to talk to them like they're an idiot.
Yeah. Did you read the comic books? Were the comic books the only one that I saw from the press junket that was actually interesting was I think he was an Indian. Your dogs are going ape shit, son.
Yeah, they are. I'm watching them.
Yeah. Is it just chasing tails? What's it gonna do?
No, there's a window.
We need to pan in.
When the dog makes a noise, we need to put it like a little window on the screen.
We need to put it. We need the 3CN dog cam.
We could probably do that.
Yeah.
Probably actually in March, whenever this expires and I do my full
Yeah.
blown one myself, It'll be tied into my server. You can just pull a stream over.
Yeah.
You can be, there can be a dog. You can put it in the backyard and just put like a cat just tied to a pole where it's running around in circles. Can't get out of the backyard. It's fun.
The Toke POV cam.
Right.
Anyway, so the only one I thought that was interesting was the one. It was like I think it was like an Indian journalist that was hammering RDJ about like you were a belligerent drunk. You were also an asshole. You did lots of drugs. Do you think this helped you at all with Iron Man? And he just kept hammering this over and over again. And then finally, Robert Downey Jr. was like, "Are you serious right now?" And then just lays into him as only RDJ can do. And he's like, "Yeah, we're done. Leave. Get out." Like,
Yeah, I think that you should be able to talk crap back to them if they ask a question that's been asked before.
yeah,
I agree. I think if they're like, how's it like playing Peter Parker? Well, I kept on forgetting my name was Peter. Like that would be my answer.
Oh, I mean, that's like when we went to Supernatural Con, Crowley
Yeah.
was that way.
Yeah, the video was awesome.
Just like the way he was like, "You're an idiot. I'm not answering that question. Better luck next time." Next.
yeah.
I think that the questions that get asked at these cons and by these people would get better if they were treated with disdain if they asked a dumb question.
Well, I think maybe the end product would be better if you didn't have to sack so much money to promotion and shipping your actors all over the place to make them do promotion. Everything. It's going to sell themselves. Everyone knows it's like you have two. Like I was saying before, you have two different categories. You have film, and then you have movies. And movies are going to sell themselves. It's an easy category. You don't have to spend over what was the figure? I can't remember what the promo budget was for Avengers 2, but it was more than what the movie cost to make.
Yeah, it was in the hundreds of millions.
Yeah, I think it was like two and change to make the movie.
Yeah,
That's how you get on Dr. Pepper and Coke cans at the
Yeah.
same time.
And the advertising budget was like over $300 million.
yeah.
To sell a movie that didn't even cost that much to make, and it's ridiculous. Like Kevin Smith was talking about. I think it may have been Dogma. I think he was talking about. He's like, well, we're going to give you $4 million, but we're going to give you $10 million for promotion. Or we're going to take $10 million to advertise the movie. He's like, it only costs $4 million to make. Like, why do you have to spend $10 million to sell a $4 million movie? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But you need standees in a theater in the middle of freaking India for some reason. Like I remember, like I don't know, maybe it's like a going back to like a simpler time, but you see like the pictures like marquees, like movie marquees and stuff like that. There's 4 titles out there,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Well, and I think that we'll go into our discussion how we liked it and stuff shortly, which I guess we can talk our general perception of it without spoiling anything.
I've heard some things. Like I had drinks with Charlie yesterday, and we talked about it kind of at length. He's like, there's an awesome spoiler in it for you. He's like, I'm not going to tell you though. But like one of the things that he was impressed with, which I'm looking forward to the most, is that, and y'all can tell me if I'm wrong. Maybe he just didn't realize it wasn't, or it was CGI. So that they used a lot more puppets than CGI, trying to do it like.
Yeah, there was a lot of practical effects because that's kind of like the legacy of ILM, the legacy of Star Wars.
So that had me looking forward to it more than like any of the trailers or any of the things that have randomly popped up. Is like it's going to be closer to the old ones, to where it's not just like shitty CGI and green screen. He's like, no, they created these robots, they created these aliens.
Yeah, like not for nothing.
Real.
Like I give J.J. Abrams a lot of credit. We talked about it a long time ago, but when like Kevin Smith visited the set and they bring him into a warehouse and they don't turn on the lights until he's in it, but they built a full scale Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
And, he's like, dude, that kid in me just welled up. And he's like, I broke down in tears. Because, like, it feels real,
Yeah.
And I think that speaks a lot to, like, put your actors in the middle of the shit. Because, like, Lucas gave up trying to be a storyteller. He never was a storyteller.
No.
But he gave up trying to put actors in realistic situations. And I think that's kind of the same problem for James Cameron, too. Throw him in a green screen and just, act to nothing.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's I was talking about that interview on the Nerdist last week with the woman who's pretty much over LucasArts now under Disney.
Yeah.
And when CGI was first introduced was back in the Jurassic Park days. That was really the first movie that she had used with Steven Spielberg CGI in, like legitimate CGI. And, they basically only used it for situations where they couldn't get a puppet created. So when the Velociraptor actually jumps up on the table, like those actions they couldn't do. So they did CGI for those types of actions, but the rest was pretty much puppeteering.
Yeah.
And that's one thing she mentioned was, with Star Wars that they've tried to keep it to that. And now, back in the day, a lot of you have the bar scenes that you pretty much have in every other Star Wars. Nowadays, with makeup the way it is, she was talking about how a lot of that is just straight up makeup on people. Versus them doing a puppet. They had full-size puppets in the bar scenes in some of the earlier ones just because of the way the creature looked.
Yeah.
Whereas now, I've seen Face Off a number of times. The stuff they can do is ridiculous nowadays. Yeah. So it kind of helps when you don't need CGI to throw an extra character here or there. When you have a makeup artist that can spend a few hours in front of someone in a chair and make them look like a completely different race, realistically, it helps. But she's real big into the puppeteering and all that, especially for things that tie into older movies and, that kind of stuff. So I honestly, there's CGI all over this movie just because of, what are you going to do in space?
Yeah.
For a lot of that kind of stuff,
Well, for the most part, we can go back to Jurassic Park. I just had to look up the date because I'm trying to do a timeline on when that was. It's 23 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
And you think about it.
Yeah. That makes me feel really old.
Yeah, but you think about the scenes, that was one of the first big CGI kind of pictures, but you can't pick it out.
No.
You can't see it. You can't feel it. And you think about all the movies that have come since, where you look at it and you're like,
CGI.
Yeah.
See it.
Well,
CGI.
I'll throw in a Lucas made picture, Red Tails. That the entire thing feels like a fucking cartoon. There's no you just completely lose any sort of sense of engagement or drama with the audience because you're like, well, you should just buy into it. It's fake. You should just buy that it's fake.
Well, and I didn't get that feel with this movie.
Not at all.
I thought that for the most part, and like we had a little discussion prior, it seems like to me it didn't have as much of the epic feel that I was hoping for.
Yeah.
But I thought it was very solid and a very good foundation to build off of. But if you look around with
content, okay. Well, let's get down to it for the stuff that Kyle can still listen to. Right off the top, beautifully shot.
Yeah.
Beautifully composed. I wouldn't expect anything less from JJ, having seen what he did with Star Trek.
Yeah.
Both films, very well composed.
In that aspect of it, I think people are going to disagree or agree. Personally, I think the ships in Star Trek look cooler than a lot of the ships in a lot of the Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
But that being said, he made the X-Wing fighters and some of the other ships look really cool. They were essentially the same thing that they had, in the originals and the first set of 1 through 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
But I thought he did a good job, and that's really where I was wanting to see the most, was just kind of the off-the-wall characters and, a lot of the space-type stuff, because I thought he did a really good job with that and on Star Trek, and I was okay with it. I think that just the ships in general that you have to use, the Armada from Star Trek alone is more diverse than a lot of the ships you have in Star Wars, but from that aspect of it, I thought he did a really good job.
Well, I didn't like that aspect of episodes 1 through 3 because everything, all the ships felt way too slick. Mm-hmm. You have sort of this established. How can you go back to a time before episodes 4, 5, and 6 and have things look? Granted, there was some government issues there. Things. It wasn't such a kind of a blown apart universe at that point.
Yeah.
So maybe
everything looked way more futuristic in episodes 1 through 3. Though.
This is true.
Yeah.
Well, because
they were in different areas, though,
and it didn't translate because then you have episodes 4, 5, and 6 where everything sort of feels like clashed together and everything. You have the Empire that obviously has the resources to build gigantic ships, cities in space, worlds in space, and theirs look slick. But then you have the Rebel fleet and the Millennium Falcon that just sort of look like they're hammered together.
Yeah,
they're
Firefly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's utilitarian. It's exactly what it needs to be, and it's built of whatever the hell we could find. But it doesn't translate. So my thought is, if you go back to a time before that, and it's supposed to be this is how everything sort of fell apart. You would see parts that translate from those slicker ships. You would try to reverse engineer it to where oh, take a look at the Millennium Falcon, oh, this part may have come from this ship. Yeah. And then try to build a slicker version and built out of pieces that may end up on some of those.
Combine concepts from this vessel, this bird with
See, one of the things that I agree with you on the older movies having too slick of ships. One of the things that's been in my mind every time I've watched it is there's not a repeat. They're all different. I'm like, there's not that many options out there. I go down the highway, I see 16,000 fusions. They're just different colors. So
that is true.
When you see like every ship is different, like there's no standard whatsoever. I'm just like, what? Ford decided, oh, I'm not going to do this one. Here's a test model. Someone buy it. Going to do a new one.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
that
it's
to
kinda
me
like-
just seemed unrealistic. I don't know why it bothers me. It just really
Yeah,
weird.
well, the way I see that in a series like Star Wars is it's a big ass universe, and you don't have like the Mitsubishi plant just churning out Millennium Falcons.
Well,
Like,
you kind of see it a little
They do
differently
with
too.
droids.
If you do have that,
Yeah.
you're on a certain side that has the resources to accomplish that.
Yeah.
Whereas the people you're following around for the majority of the movies are not on that side.
yeah,
And when you do see that side, you see the high ranking stuff. So yeah, you don't see everyone driving around in their Lexuses, when the stormtroopers get off. But like you see what would actually be out in the outer realms. Like you got that 1985 Chevy. Well, it kind of moves out a solar system, and someone likes them rims. So they take them, and then it goes out of solar system, and someone grabs the chassis. So by the time it gets out to those outer levels, you've just got random crap you got to put together.
yeah.
And I mean, this one and the other one have similar situations where you find a junkyard planet, putting things together, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it really kind of shows you how far away from
I'm talking like when they're in the,
space
we're in the
proper.
Capitol, right? Like you see like the small shots of like the garage and things like that. They're in a single car.
But if
Like,
you think about
today
that
at
also,
work, two
you have
fusions that
you
look
have this
exactly
one
like Ed's
planet.
parked next to each other, and there's 8 people at work.
Yeah, but you have rich people that can have whatever ship they want from any galaxy, from anywhere around. They're like, you know what? I want that one.
Yeah, it still bothers me because there's gonna be like because you're gonna have the guy who's gonna be just like American Psycho. You're like, oh, that's the one you have. I want that one, but I want it in a shinier color. Like that way, you see two of the same thing. They're just a different color because that's how people think. They're not like, I want this rare one that no one ever seen. They're like, I want the same one he has, but with like automatic windows.
Well, that and for mass creation, they need to be the same. Otherwise,
Yeah, and plus, I mean, we're talking about like an American culture. We don't hang on to shit. Like we abandon it very quickly for the next new shiny. So anyone that you see driving like an Oldsmobile 88, you're like, you're poor. Like, but every once in a while, you do see someone driving around a mint condition Datsun 510. You're like, fuck, that's a beautiful car. You just don't see that stuff. No one hangs on to that stuff. So
I got a mint condition 08 Nissan Sentra.
So with that in mind, someone that develops an attachment to something like the Millennium Falcon, you're like, oh, that's you can understand that sort of it's I don't think they touched on it enough in Star Wars, but there is one of the things I got from it from the original series was like, oh, it's a little touch, it's a little nod to hot rod culture, yeah,
I can see
Well,
that.
the original series, I didn't have a problem. It was the new ones, the crappy ones.
1 through 3.
Yeah, that I had a problem with because there wasn't a single duplicate in there, and that pissed me off because I was like, that's not going to happen on that planet. I guarantee there's a factory on the other side where the poor people live, just churning out in different colors.
Well, like we covered on the last podcast, there weren't enough people around to say no.
Yeah.
There weren't
enough people around that had sense enough to go, let's pull it back a little bit, because you had a full shop of model makers that were like working on Star Wars and they just want to create.
So they make 40 different things and they all get put in there. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, now they're working on a series they loved as a child. They grew up with Star Wars. They're getting to work on it. They want to create everything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a pain point in things like this that have had success prior to.
And I was happy to see that pulled back for Episode 7.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I was pleased. Like I said, I didn't have that, like, oh, my God, high five on the way out kind of feeling about it. But I was like, this is a good start. This is significantly better than the last time I went to a premiere of a trilogy of Star Wars.
And another thing,
I
too.
did feel that, though. I got the
did?
giddiness afterward.
You
Like,
did?
I got the giddiness during the movie. There were a lot of scenes.
I had
couldn't
a lot of
stop
scenes during.
smiling during. I don't know. I think some people expect too much sometimes. I mean, but I was able to
That's
come
Neil.
out knowing that I got exactly what I wanted out of that movie. My only complaint because of maybe was a little bit, like I mentioned to you, a little bit of predictability. But it was predictable in a good way because it's exactly what I wanted to happen. If anything else would have happened, I would have probably been pissed. So I'm just like, it's going to happen.
This is
It's right
probably
here.
where
This is
Kyle
where it
can
goes
ask
down.
a question and then leave.
But-
Yeah, I have a question. And I want Kristen to answer it first because she's better at noticing things when it comes to this. So when Charlie and I were talking, he talked about a particular, because he's like, I'm going to go see it as many times as I can. He's like, when you go, let me know. I'll go with you. If you want to go again right after, we can do that. Like, he loves it.
Yeah, there definitely is that sense you get from it. It's like watching hockey with a Canadian. You have to go watch Star Wars with a Star Wars fan.
Well, and with Charlie, like, if it was at all crappy, he'd have been like, I saw it, I got it at home now. Like, it would be something like that.
I want to watch it again in theater. I actually possibly want to see it in 3D.
He mentioned to see
I did see it in 3D.
Where it's just flashback, and there's so much that you're trying to absorb at once that you can't get it all.
It's not really flashbacks.
Honestly, I the whole movie was difficult trying to keep up with new characters, tie it into old characters, and like all that kind of stuff. And I did a very good job of watching very little prior to going in.
Yeah,
I watched the little series from Conan where he had a few people on. But no spoilers for the most part.
I've seen the trailers. That's about it. That, and I've had obviously some conversation now, but I've threatened people's life or dull knife castration if they spoil it.
I definitely want to see it again in theaters. But like I was just talking to Chad in the garage. Like it kind of feels to me like there's so many movies that are supposed to be epic these days.
Yeah.
That it's hard to say ones were better. But I do remember at least 6 to 8 times where I'm leaning. We went to movie tavern. I'm leaning there, just kind of watching it, and it was just like I could feel like little smile. Big smile. Yeah, that was good. Little smile. Big. Just like for moments on end where it was like they're adding on to like things that you remember from some of the other ones. You're like, yeah, I like
definitely
that.
Playing off of nostalgia.
Exactly.
And
and like we talked about, Jurassic
World
did it
anything
too.
away.
But he was saying there's a particular scene that has just a bunch of it that's flooding.
I think if I know what you're talking about, I will say there is a scene where there are a lot of flashes because it's almost like somebody's getting these vision type flashes from something.
How much do you think you caught percentage-wise?
Percentage-wise, I mean, I think I would have to at least watch it one more time to catch everything. But I mean, you still probably catch at least 70-80% of what you're seeing. But maybe you
get the gist of it.
Yeah,
later in the movie, you understand why that happened.
Well,
actually,
you really already understand why it happened as it's happening. You kind of realize. But
I mean, you kind of get the whole full feel of it.
The way he was
later.
talking about it, so because he stayed spoiler free, and he saw that scene and he was like, I mean, it's Charlie, right?
Yeah.
So he's just trying to absorb it, and his brain's about to pop because he's all Star Wars and he's probably hard. Like, there's way too much going on for him, and so
but that's
so
where
then
that's where you have to like.
He goes back and he reads about it because there's people that break the scene down.
Yeah,
and he's like, I missed so much, and he's like, I can't wait to go see it again like 10 more times so I can catch everything. So I'm trying to see how many people missed. Because he's saying that there's so much in that scene that people aren't even getting.
It and watch
so that's why I wanted to see y'all's take. If y'all felt the same way, or maybe it was just something that y'all missed completely, or if he was just overexcited.
I felt overloaded the majority of the movie without being very aware of who all the characters were going into it. Obviously, you knew who some of the main people were.
I know BB-8. That's about it.
BB-8.
Does he go beep beep?
There are a handful of others that I knew what characters they were playing and things like that. But it was just, I don't know. It felt to me like there was a lot of information coming pretty fast, but most of it gets tied together. Like I had a few questions after the fact, and they were answered because someone else caught it. Mm-hmm. But
is that someone else?
One of them, yeah. But yeah, I think I know exactly the scene he's talking about, and I know exactly. I say exactly what happens, but I very well could have missed because it's not only the fact that you're seeing these nostalgic type scenes, but it's at a point in the movie where like you're also feeding on the emotions of the character who's experiencing those visions, and it's a very like heart pounding kind of scene. So, and the way it's shot back and forth, I thought it was shot very well. I think a lot of kind of vision flashback things are done very cheesy. But I thought these actually were pulled off.
Well, it's different because you're not getting a bunch of just third-party images.
Yeah.
Like when they drop the character into it, it's kind of like, you may disagree. I think we may have talked about like the new Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake, where you had that sort of fade from awakey time to dream time. I thought those were done really well. And I felt these scenes were kind of done the same way. Like you just sort of get dropped into this other thing. Like you can kind of see where.
I didn't watch that trash.
Okay, well, fine then.
The horror fan did not watch that trash.
If it's not,
but
Robert,
I know that's
if it's not Robert England as freaking Freddy, no.
Well, and that's kind of what I was pointing at when I mentioned.
I can separate the two.
Her emotions.
There's this one and there's this one.
That the emotions were really high, and you felt that separate from the visions. Is kind of what you're just talking about.
Can you get the fuck out of here so we can stop dancing around the shit we want to talk about?
We are really
So
treading
y'all are
on
ready?
ice here.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because I mean, we've been jerking off for the last 10 minutes, going like, "There's a scene."
Some
and there
people
are things shown in the scene.
Some people
That
like foreplay, Chad.
Do these things.
Yeah, I
They
know.
do.
Go downstairs, go twiddle your biscuit. We're gonna talk about real stuff. You're gonna take a sweet time getting out of the room too.
Right. And we start talking in 5,
Yeah.
4. You got more downstairs.
So yeah. Don't listen too loud.
Yeah, put headphones on.
So go down the stairs faster.
Just let gravity do its job.
Be like your shirt and Sonic the Hedgehog down the stairs.
We need some really cool intermission music right there.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
dun, 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 dun.
So yeah, well, one of the things I can start off with, I did see it in 3D. And
Yeah, I wanted to see what.
God.
I hate. You battling with the mic?
It's hard to chew and have the mic in a talking position at the same time. Yeah, you get used to it.
It is. It
Yeah,
is.
yeah. Yeah, I did see it in 3D. Someone else bought me a ticket, and I actually showed it. I'm like, it's 3D.
Yeah,
Like,
I saw
really-
that part in the chat.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, man, this is going to suck. This is going to be like a 2-hour headache because I hate 3D movies.
I'm the same way.
They mess with my eyes. They give me headaches. I kept my glasses off because like they ran 20 minutes of trailers before the movie, and every single one of them was in 3D. So I just watched it without the glasses until they got to X-Men, and I was like, "What's all this about?" And then
So
I
you
put
went
on the
you went
glasses.
to a assigned seating, like I sit in a rocking chair kind of theater, right?
No.
No.
I went on the Friday night.
Yeah.
No assigned seats, which I was.
Would you go Silverado or?
No, I went to it's Laporte.
Oh, that's right. You went to the Dirty Water.
Yeah,
You went to Dirty Water Town.
we
Oh,
drove.
so you got to see an X-Men trailer?
Yeah, that's what I actually wanted to talk about when he didn't leave for that was what trailers showed up. When you go to Movie Tavern, half the trailers are for Movie Tavern.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the bad things is you don't get to see all the same lead-ins that you would
there
get.
was no X-Men trailer.
Yeah, we didn't get X-Men.
There was the only other one I remember because it was funny. There was like a kids movie that involved like the lives of animals when their owners are away. It was hilarious. I
Didn't
laughed
see
a lot
that
at
one.
that. The only other one I remember was X-Men.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? I
No.
got that one.
Didn't get that one.
I got that one.
That's a really old one too. 'Cause
Yeah.
the last movie I went to had that trailer. So yeah, they screwed all that up.
So yeah, we didn't get any cool like movie trailers.
But this was, I think this.
Well,
is
there was
the
that one about
first-
like Rome or someplace over there that looked okay.
Oh,
yeah,
Gods
yeah.
of Egypt.
Yeah, Gods of Egypt.
300 meets.
Yeah, another one of those.
It's got the dude from Game of Thrones in there, and it's like you got the 300 dude.
yeah. So,
It looks like it could have some cool creatures and stuff, but it's still, those movies walk a fine line. So
well, you
we'll
get
see.
your eye candy, so you're fine.
I was like,
I don't know about that.
Usually, like at least 6 of the 300 dudes that are running around with like pecs and no shirt on are going to be okay. That was fun.
yeah, it was neat, wasn't it?
So 3D, which way?
It took me a long time to. It's you have to train your eyes.
Had you watched the previews in 3D, do you think your eyes would have had enough time to train prior to the movie? Okay,
Not at all. Because my eyes were still trying to focus on stuff, like 2/3 into the movie, and then it wasn't until we got to, well, I guess we can talk about the scene.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to touch on that just yet. So, I guess from start to finish, we kind of already gone over what we liked about it.
So let's just go for the overall thoughts.
Overall thoughts, if I'm not thinking about it too hard, good movie.
On a scale from 1 to Chad Likey, 2 thumbs up, like 1 to 10.
I like the ride.
You like
I like the ride. Like, I'm not going to rate it a 10. I'm not
Right.
going to rate it like dog shit either, but,
So
it's
I
a
like
good
the
seven.
ride.
It's
A
a
good
good seven.
seven something.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, I was expecting quite a bit of back and forth between our guest, myself, and you because of your past.
Well, it's the same thing with the original trilogy. If I had only watched it once, it would be the same thing. Like, yeah, there's plot holes in it, and there's things that they just sort of, he seemed to abandon storytelling wise from episode 4 to episode 5, and then sort of changed, went off the rails and went a different direction with something. But I mean, that's kind of what that's kind of what you get when you don't have someone who's a storyteller write a movie.
Yeah. And your thoughts? I guess you've already kind of said overall.
I mean, I thought it was pretty great. I would say if 1 out of 10, I would give it about an 8.
So I'm 7.5, 8.
Yeah.
I do think my rating will go up after I watch it again because there's going to be, like he mentioned about that one flashback scene when he touches the lightsaber.
Extra, I mean, we're different characters, man. Like, extra tidbits like that aren't going to add to the story to me.
For me, it was very, very hard not to associate the characters with their previous characters. So for me, that was Leia running around.
Yeah, it's a direct translation, and that's one of the biggest things I hated was it was too much like someone mathematically broke down episode 4 and said, we have to make this.
And that was our big discussion when we came out. I felt like this is
Yeah,
the second time I've seen this.
Yeah.
And to me, it was more of, that's kind of
They did it right
the
this
way
time.
no, it's kind of the way it was supposed to be. That's part of the whole mythos of Star Wars, the balance of good of evil. It's the repetition. It's history repeating itself. So it's like that's actually the way it's supposed to work out legend-wise. Like it's going to be, the father and the son who goes on the path of the light and the dark, and how the good and the light and the dark side of the Force battle against each other, and they kind of do it in very similar ways as time keeps going. So I actually, people might think it's repetitive, but to me, that's actually the way it's supposed to go. You always have 2 Siths. The master, the apprentice will always kill the master. And then the apprentice becomes the master and finds another, apprentice Sith, and it continues that way. But you only have 2, and there's a reason for that if you go into the extended universe.
Well,
but
and
then,
that would
that's
be
the
you
thing.
also have the Jedi. There's
Same
only
concept.
supposed to be. So I mean, it's just the way it works. So I actually liked that aspect of it because you are supposed to see the reflections from the original.
Well, and I'll say I'm probably not as big of a Star Wars fan or junkie as some of the people who might listen. I only know the movies. I haven't read the books. I haven't watched the cartoons. Any of the stuff right now that they're pretty much removing and saying that the only canon is what's happening now.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that people know about characters from different, cartoons or different books or comic books or whatever that they're like, well, that's not, I got to throw that out now. And luckily for me, mine wasn't convoluted that way because I didn't have all that other stuff in there. Not for this, at least. Some things, my Stargate, my Supernatural, things like that. I may go and get the comics and read some books and things like that. But Star Wars, I really haven't.
But
So-
that's the thing too about like all these different franchises, and we've talked about that at great length too. As it stands, I have to take that at face value because that's the trip I'm on.
Yeah.
I'm not going to watch Daredevil, and while I'm in the middle of it, I'm not going to I'm not going to care a whole lot about what was in the books.
And see, I'm not either.
This is what it is. I think you kind of take that from S.H.I.E.L.D. too. I think you kind of take that from the things that you're a fan of, besides like, whatever may have a deep history or a deeper history. Maybe Game of Thrones is like that to you, where the book and everything else, the history of it. Okay, well. But the thing is that, if you're going to make a film, I think it to just assume that everyone going into it knows the extended backstory is really insulting to your audience.
Well, and you made that exact same comment, like rewind 25 minutes.
Well, and then that's why they
about
let
Batman
go.
and
Yeah.
Peter Parker,
And that's why they let go of the extended storyline here. I think they wanted to bring in.
And yeah, I
new
will say
fans.
that
They know a lot of parents only just let their kids just watch these movies recently because the new ones came out.
well, and
you
if you think
know?
about 1 through 3, their Anakin was everywhere when this thing got rebooted or whatever last time.
Yeah.
Like Anakin got whored out. And I did make a point not to go into too many spoilers or, watch or listen to too many things about the show. But it didn't feel to me like they were putting Rey out there and like whoring her out before the premiere like they did Anakin. They were trying to bring in that Jar Jar Binks loving I'm 12-year-old boy group of people that could relate to Anakin, the preteens and teens. I think for 1, 2, and 3, or at least 1 or 2. I don't know them well enough to know which one was which for that, but I didn't have that same feeling on this. Yeah, you saw commercials everywhere with kid stormtroopers or that little BB-8 running around or whatever, but it didn't feel to me like they were trying to sell you on a character or a set of characters as much as they have in the past.
And honestly, I think part of that was them trying to keep everything so secret. Too.
I do,
like
yeah,
they were
I
just
agree.
giving you tidbits, and honestly, it rouses curiosity. Like people want to know even more because they can't find anything.
Oh, yeah.
Like where are all the freaking?
And that's one thing that they were talking
promotions?
about on the show. I'm really bad with names, so I'm going to say old Princess Leia because I in my mind I still see old Princess Leia, and then the new one Rey I call new Princess Leia.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening, that's kind of what's going on in my head. But old Princess Leia was on Conan with a few others, and the way she said they had to do things was so much different than other things she's done because if me and you were two different characters, you're a stormtrooper X and I'm some sort of pilot B, we know each other's names or titles, but we don't know any of their backstory going into shooting this movie with them.
Yeah.
So she was coming up to people and like, hey, nice to meet you. I've heard this about you. And they're like, that is true.
Well, that
Like,
was
I'm
the
not going
funny-
to give you any more
well,
information.
That's the funny part. The only part you see her and Rey film together is they walk up to each other and hug.
Yeah.
That's it. So beyond that, they would not know anything else in correlation to what happens with one or the other. They just come up and hug. I think that's the only thing that you see them together.
And she said it was funny because you'd have that person come up and they'd do their scene together. Like, so what have you heard? Have you heard about this? Have you heard about this? So like the gossip talkers on set. And she's like, it was great for me because, as far as this franchise goes, I'm royalty. So everyone told me everything. But she's like, still when you're listening to what these people have, it's so disjointed that there were very, very few people that had the full picture. And, like we discussed the Legos. Well, that was actually for Marvel stuff, the Legos, showing things off. Like this was a pretty tight-lipped movie. Like, hardly anyone knew anything about anything until it hit. And, like we mentioned, it's not really available. You can't find it online. No one's really got a copy of it they're willing to share. So it's like I'm glad for
I wish
it.
all movies would do it that way, honestly.
Yeah. I do. It really sucks knowing about everything that's going to happen in the movie going into it.
It's awesome that it wasn't like a movie that played all the good parts in the previews,
And it's bad. It was very difficult for me to even remember a lot of previews. Like of
I didn't watch
substance.
any. Like
a lot of them you had to look up online. I don't even know that there were any on TV that I saw.
So, what
Yeah,
was
I
their
don't-
advertising
all the
budget?
previews I saw, I watched online.
Their advertising budget, it seems like for this movie, was more for product placement than anything.
Do you have to sell this movie?
No, like
You don't have to
cereal
sell
and
this
Pop-Tarts and all these things with Star
Yeah.
Wars logos. I'm fairly certain that's where the majority of their advertising budget went.
Makeup.
Yeah.
There's like all that stuff was sitting on Reddit where they were like, Disney, just stop. Just please stop. Like it was all the different product tie-ins were just kind of like it's too much. But anyway, back to the actual movie.
Yeah.
Biggest gripe. I didn't like the fact that so the character Rey, new Princess Leia,
Yeah.
that entire
New
arc
Luke, not new Princess Leia.
doesn't fucking matter. Rey, the character, the actual character's name. I didn't like the aspect of it that her entire arc, every key scene for her felt way too much like Last Action Hero, where she got the golden ticket, but she'd seen all the movies before. So when she's in the scene where she's like, you're going to drop your blaster and
that
unlock
was
these
the
things.
only scene that annoyed me because I was like, okay, if she thinks everything's a myth, unless she's heard the story before, how does she know that she could just be like, tell them to drop this? Okay, anything else I could believe that it's the awakening and she's kind of feeling the force inside of her and like she's learning how to fight. And she already knew
was
how
that
to
a flashback that we missed?
And you can tell
No. Her
Maybe.
development down that road was way too fast.
That's the one thing that I'm like, how does she know that if she speaks that they're going to do it? She tells her, like... Unless,
in the new group of people, the only person that had heard of them was who?
Unless they go back to it and she's had some sort of memory. But yeah, that's my one gripe.
Well, I think the black dude was the only one who knew who Luke Skywalker was out of the little subset of people that was there when his name was mentioned, when his name got dropped.
But it's like, that entire universe, the entire sequence of events was like, I read this book. Like, it feels like you just dropped a bunch of fans into a movie and they're figured like we get to play out the movie now. Like
I
that was
played
a
Star Wars RPG before.
But the only thing I can think is it seemed like she had heard of Luke Skywalker, knew like his name was of legend, and maybe she had heard a story at some point about what he had done.
Well, and that's
and
the
she had
weird
heard
part.
Of what people had done with the Force. Before that, they had thought it was fake, and since that lady had already told her, just look inside you, then maybe she thought she could pull it
Had
off.
we gone down like sort of a past events trail,
maybe
where
if
we
they
see,
would have like really focused on something.
well, not her, where we see them trying to destroy the Jedi, and
there was a little bit of like, why is this so different than everything we've seen before? Like, why are there no longer Jedis or Siths, or like, why is this kind of
and they kind of went through like, I mean, basically, they didn't do it enough. But their entire model for this movie was World War II. Like the story's been written for you.
Well, no, it explained why there are no Jedis and Siths.
Yeah, I know, but as a storytelling, vehicle, your entire model for this franchise, for these set of movies, was already written with World War II. You have the Third Reich. You have all the elements are there.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, it could fit in like a glove. It's already there. But as far as the Jedi sort of sub story, you could have touched on that a little bit more. Like, that's why it's sort of like spoke about in hushed tones. That's why no one knows about the Force and the Jedi and everything else, because that's sort of been wiped off the face of the earth.
It did seem like, I mean, for a Star Wars movie, that there was a supreme lack. And they did, like you mentioned, they did kind of go into why and stuff. But for me, it was like, really, how is that going to happen?
Luke was hiding, Yeah. I mean...
Yeah, but you got to fill in too many of the blanks. If you're going to tell me a story, tell me a fucking story. Don't just assume that I'm going to kind of like draw the parallels. Like, oh, that's because of this other movie that I saw, or this book I read, or this. It's too. You're not doing your job as a storyteller if you don't give me those elements.
I will say the scene that both y'all didn't like, I did like.
I mean,
they gave you the elements since you already know the story.
Exactly, and that's the point. I mean. People that are watching this already know the damn story.
That doesn't...
I mean, they're not just making this for the newcomers. They are also making it for the people that have been watching it all along.
Well, fantastic. If you're a fan, that's great. But if you're getting dropped into this whole thing from the
that's
start...
your problem.
No, it's your problem.
Previous movies, maybe you can watch.
But really, like, who wouldn't have gone through and watched the other ones?
It's a crutch for a shitty storyteller to not tell a fucking story.
Okay, let me come in and watch episode 7 and see if I'm going to watch episode 7 and like episode 7 and not watch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or
and did you start at Rocky 4?
No, it's a crutch.
It's not a crutch.
It's a crutch. It's a crutch to not
watch episode 7 without like knowing a damn storyline and expect themselves to like the movie. Like,
it's not a matter of liking the movie. It's a matter of, is this a story that can stand alone? Is this a complete story start to finish?
It shouldn't have to. It's episode 7. Episode 7 shouldn't have to stand alone. It has other episodes.
The problem is those of us that have watched the first 6, the things that you may not have when you've seen them, but you're not as a massive Star Wars like fanboy, but like the scene you guys both just talked about her like trying to pull the you will untie me.
I didn't like the actual scene itself,
but it was one of those ones where like I was cheesing,
like,
dude.
How would she know? You just think about it. You're just, how does she know?
But I asked myself that, and I'm like, you know what? I don't care.
Exactly.
I don't care how she knows. I like it because it's paying homage. And I think movies do get caught up on that, where they're like, "Well, we got to throw this."
Well, as soon as I see it, I'm like,
you could be
horse
like,
shit.
okay, she heard the story. Maybe her mother, who was obviously, maybe her mother who took care of her before
had a
having to
bedtime
send her through
story.
slavery, had a bedtime story
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, this and this and this
Yeah,
happened."
but
and maybe
if I'm watching
and maybe
a
they're
story,
going to touch on it later. I
that's
mean, you're
fucking
judging it
fantastic. If
before
I'm
the
watching a
next
story,
episode.
movie, film, or otherwise, I shouldn't have to make excuses for the character. I shouldn't have to make excuses for the storyteller and give them leeway and say, maybe they're going to do this.
I think that you're allowed to do that when you're paying homage to something
When
that
it's
came
that,
on in
and
one of
you
the
know-
first
But
six.
that,
And you know
but
there are gonna
that
be
on the
multiple-
nose,
and you
that
know-
on the nose, and that on the
No.
button.
When you know there are going to be multiple episodes and more stories in the whole thing, like, no, you can actually have a little bit of leeway because, they actually might come back to it and already know that they are. So they wrote that in specifically because they know they're coming back to it. So you never
But the thing is, I know they're not.
So what if the next episode?
I know they're not.
No,
Now
they're
check this
not.
out. What if
because
the
we're gonna
next
have
episode?
to find out how she ended up in slavery. We already know, because people are just people are already arguing: is Luke her father or is Leia actually her mother? There's already this argument, even though it's retarded.
Well, that's what I'm
because
saying.
you know
If
Luke's her
episode
father.
8 starts with
And
a
so they're
flashback
gonna
of
have
Luke
to go,
holding Rey,
they're gonna have to go to her backstory.
telling her a story about that exact scene, and that's how the next episode kicks off.
They have to.
How would
they
that
have
make
to
you
explain how Rey ended up where she was, because now everyone's gonna be like, "How did this person end up, in slavery?"
There are a lot of people
practically
confused
on
right now,
this
not knowing
planet?
whose son or daughter she is.
So they got to touch on it. So she's probably heard some sort of tidbit. She's got some sort of information. She knew who Luke Skywalker was, knew he was legendary, knew the Jedi and Force storyline. So you still just don't know about that yet. Yeah, you can assume they're not going to touch on it, but you know what assuming does? Makes an ass out of you and me.
It's the most ridiculous goddamn quote ever in the history
I love
of
it
time.
though.
It's
But
true.
no,
Fucking
it's,
retarded.
and that exact scene was one of those ones where I had the little cheesy sly smile, I just got away with something, and then it's I got the full smile, and then I kind of look around to see how other people are reacting to it, because I'm like, I can call that bullshit. She don't know about that. That she did, unless she watched the first 6. She's not aware of being able to do that. But for me, it was
I'm sitting
what?
with an entire aisle. I'm sitting next to 4 diehard fans, and they all had the same exact reaction. Oh, horse shit.
Yeah, see, I'm not a diehard, so I can enjoy it just to enjoy it. But
Yeah.
for me, that, and with Jurassic World, we're going to keep making parallels, I guess, all night long. When they go through the site of the original Jurassic Park, they could have done almost anything during that time frame, and I would have been okay with it, simply because this was when I was a kid 23 years ago. This was the awesomeness that I watched.
Yeah, but it wasn't on the nose. You didn't have some.
I know, yeah.
You didn't have some stand-in for Jeff Goldblum go, must move faster, must move faster. You didn't have that on the nose dead nuts callback to that same thing.
And like I said, if they come back and explain it in the next movie,
But I'm not
they're
talking
gonna
about
have to
I'm talking about that one scene with the exact line she utters, which
Yeah.
is really, come on, man. With
My
no
wine's got some specks in it.
development, icky.
Yeah.
Number 2, I didn't need Han Solo.
Why not?
and that's why they killed him off.
Yeah,
There you go.
his entire arc was just, it felt so forced and felt like it was there just for nostalgia.
I see
No,
that,
it
but
needed to
who
let
else
their-
knows shit about any of
It
this at this
needed to
point?
let there be the relationship between him and Leia and make that line, and then have Kylo Ren, that whole deal. Have that be his son, and
I
have
don't
him
think
be
he would have been
killed
necessary
off.
in episode 8. But
But it was
I-
passive. If you don't make Han Solo Kylo's dad.
Well, no,
No,
I
it
think
was
it's
passive,
also
but you also
got
got to think who else knows about anything that happened X number of
It's
years
just-
ago?
and it's
We're
also-
talking about, no one knew about the Jedi, no one knew about the Sith and all that, so they just happened to come across.
And it's
the
also
one man
letting you
and the
know
one
that
ship
He was the
that can-
person in the original movies that doubted everything and didn't believe in the
Yeah.
Force, and he made this huge turn by this time, and it's kind of, to me, I mean, you don't know what they're setting up for throughout the rest of the series. To me, you also know that he was a very flawed individual. He was a smuggler and did everything that he used to do, and actually had obviously turned back to that and wasn't even working with the Resistance. So you can almost see why a child of his and Leia's might have that pull toward the dark side over a child of Luke's and whoever Luke was with, you know.
So you're going to go on record right now and
I'm
say...
going to go on record and say that I strongly believe since the sword, since the lightsaber of Luke's father that got passed down to Luke got passed down to Luke's daughter.
So is that are you on the same boat?
I'm pretty sure if she had the flashbacks,
it's too strong. It's too the foreshadowing feels too strong.
So so that's what I feel like. So
3 for 3, just for the record, anyone listening, we all believe.
Yes.
She saw Daddy at the end.
And I feel like that's kind of how she ended up. She ends up as a slave, just as Anakin did, and she ends up good with tools and objects and stuff. The
and that's where the parallels for me were a little too much. I'm like, we didn't see when she built the ship and raced it around though. We didn't get to see that part.
Or further from that. The kind of what I'm feeling way stronger than Luke being the daddy. I'm feeling more like Leia's the mom.
Leia's not the mom.
They're twins.
The mom.
Luke and Leia are twins.
They are twins, but one of them is still very involved with the resistance and things that are going on, and would take an ally like that, whereas one of them's in hiding.
My biggest thing is Leia and freaking. Leia sent her other son, who was supposed to have the Force, off to train with Luke. And then, he goes to the dark side. Luke goes off hiding. Why would she send her only daughter off to a barren wasteland to be a slave and fend for herself? Does that really seem like something Leia would do while she goes to be a general somewhere?
Instead of a princess.
It depends on her age, and you also have this entire Jedi massacre
there's no
happening.
way that she would have sent her daughter there.
Well, now you're speculating. Now you're
son.
assuming. You're assuming. You're filling in the blanks for a character for things that haven't happened yet.
No, I'm just saying, when you think about it, a woman would have never sent her daughter to be a slave like that.
But you're not telling the story.
Then you can also... Oh, and you're getting to jump to conclusions while I don't know.
But it's the same. It's the same arguments that you presented to me. So this is now the counter.
I'm saying that being a big fan of the original storylines and being of the Leia character, if she sends one child off to train and learn what it is to have the Force inside of her and in him and all of that, she wouldn't just send the other child to be a slave somewhere. That's just, there's no sense.
Well, based on just the facts we know from the episode, since we like this little back and forth, we know a lot more about Princess General Leia than we do about Skywalker in this film. And from what I know, and what we both know, is that Skywalker is hiding for whatever reason, and that Princess Leia is now a general, and she's still fighting with the Resistance. So just the two people, based off of their primary functions in the movie, one of them is more likely to drop a kid off on a barren world than the other. And just looking at it from what we do know and not making assumptions based off of anything else, he was in the movie for 3 seconds. She was in the movie. She cared. She did this. She did that.
Because
she's not going to leave a daughter behind.
You have to think.
Whereas we know nothing about Luke, so
Anakin
why not
got left
assume
on
it
a
was
barren
him?
world as a slave. Luke got left on a barren world working with his family, but still, he got left on a barren world where he was doing whatever, his tinkering and having to work on robots or whatever. I mean, and he was he kind of felt the calling or whatever, and then ends up going to a planet having to freaking train with Yoda. And I mean, it's kind of just how it ends up. And now she's going to have to go train with him, her own father. I mean, I just feel like that's the way it's going to be.
I think that's the way it's going to turn out too. But
I mean, and he already knew she was coming.
Most likely, yeah. Since we're giving into sappiness with the entire series, most likely, yeah.
But yeah, it was really
sappiness.
weird.
Like I said, it's history repeating itself.
Was it really weird him not being the Joker
the balance
for you, or the trickster with Mark Hamill?
God, the character's annoying as hell, man. Oh my God.
I saw him and I was like.
So anyway, enough about enough about gripes. Huge high side for me. Poe and Finn.
Yeah.
I don't like that all of the individual arcs were so rushed with the entire thing.
Which usually happens in a character developing storyline, is you just got to get through it. But
yeah,
I agree.
I see them as rebuilding years with sports teams.
Could you have sat there another hour and it's still been a good length film for you?
I'm not talking like
You? Could that have been an hour longer and you'd have been okay with it? Like,
not
to
at
me,
that pace.
that 2
Not at that
hours,
pace.
I think that the way it spun up and things started moving, that last hour would have felt like 20 minutes.
You got to cut a lot of fat to make that sensible.
Yeah.
Like it was already kind of bloated to begin with. There were too
So
many.
you thought it was a little too bloated?
There are some scenes they could have slightly extended, I guess, but yeah, it would have depended on how they.
It
worked
seemed
that.
to end it, and that's probably caught up with the adrenaline and the fact that you're
all
at this movie,
the
but-
nostalgia stuff. I think we could have spent a lot more time with Rey on her home planet and getting to know her,
But Batman
without having to drop.
Batman. We know Batman. We know Peter Parker.
Yeah, but
Why
this
her?
is a new character.
This is Princess Leia 2.0.
No. it's
Yeah,
not.
but I can do without the entire
Princess
Han
Leia
Solo,
turned away
Chewie,
from the
Millennium
Force.
Falcon shit, and just concentrate on Rey in this. Bring me Han in Episode 8 if you really want to, but let's develop this character without spoon feeding all of this development way too fast. Act 1, it catches up way too fast.
And yeah, that's kind of really the beginning of trying to figure out who's who is really when I got a little more overwhelmed, which I could have done a little bit of studying and known who was who going into it. It took me quite some time to realize who Brienne of Tar was, but she did have a mask on the whole time.
Yeah, but it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Like who that is doesn't even matter. Wait if
It does when it's someone from another show that you're a fan of.
No, for this.
For a viewer and a fan, it does matter.
For someone that's looking for a story, it doesn't fucking matter.
Well, that's why people go into watching movies for different reasons.
That's good. Have your reason, but you're trying to sell me on a way to watch a movie that is not my way of watching movies.
Oh, I'm not trying to sell you on it. I'm just saying that I'm different than you.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So, I mean, I wouldn't have enjoyed that movie nearly as much if it didn't seem. It actually felt like the proper torch was passed, which is something most
Exactly.
movies can't do the right way.
That's kind of how I feel.
And it
They
boils
took
down to that
this,
for
and
me.
there was enough nostalgia that went around with this that I enjoyed this, and I feel like they can take the next movie and kind of open it up and actually add in some new stuff now and step away from just repeating.
Do you think the
everything
second one can be
and
better than the
touching
first
back.
one? Do you think 8 can be better than 7?
Well, if they're following the formula of the original 3, they kind of have to.
Which is another thing that you talked about a lot with the whole cyclical.
I think it will be because we're going to touch a lot more on the Sis storyline, and she's going to be training a little more. We're going to get to see the backstory, more about what went on with Luke, all the stuff we got curious about in this first one.
They teased you enough to lead you in to want to see the second one.
So I feel like it does have the potential to be better.
And that's one of the things that you would hope would be done right in some of the other cinematic universes was when you have that first movie for the character development, which in this case you had character development for a handful of new people. I really don't think that they had to go too far into past people like Leia and Han Solo, Chewie, R2, CP, all those, because we've seen them over and over again. And I thought there wasn't too much of them. There was enough of them. I will say that I would have preferred not to see Han Solo in number 8. So the fact that we hope he's done in 7.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why they did it. They brought him in. I mean, he's a character that he doesn't have
if
the
he would have
Force.
been the hero or done something at the end and it been a bigger deal, I think that the way he went out and the fact that he's gone, if he's gone, this is Marvel, gotta say that. I thought was good for the series overall.
And you have to think, Darth Vader taking out Obi-Wan is probably the start of what started to kind of break him down and make him kind of switch his ways and feel like emotion toward his own son and everything. So that's going to be what starts to take down Kylo Ren. He's going to feel bad about taking down his father.
Yeah.
Like,
and I don't. Did you buy that he was emotionally told at that moment at the very end?
Not at all.
I didn't either. I was like, dude, your nose is really big and you're faking it.
It's too. this is again the complaint about the thing where it's.
Although I don't like that actor, I don't think the one they got to play Han Solo's
I'm just glad
son.
like he was behind a mask most of the time.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the best part about it. Just
Because he was one of the ones on the
mask.
Conan interviews, and that was primarily the thing that I watched because it was Brienne of Tar from Game of Thrones, the big.
Yeah.
It was him. It was the black dude, and it was Rey. And then you had Harrison Ford, and you had Princess.
Because I was like,
Leia.
as soon as he takes the mask off, I'm like, fake ass Jon Snow.
Yes, I was like, dude, Jon Snow like just grew.
Because I was like,
honker.
if they'd have got him, I think that would have been so much better.
But I honestly think the way they went with him was more of talk into this microphone right now. We want to see what you sound like if we put you through this mask simulator.
Yeah. Oh, and
more
the
so
altered
than
voice.
what you look like and how you are, because when he had the mask on, the way he spoke and the way it came out fit the character that I thought he was.
Yeah, the altered voice was perfect.
I thought
like
that was,
that
and I think
entire
that maybe
presence.
why they chose him more so than he's behind a mask all the time. You don't really care what his face looks like. You know, and the Jon Snow kind of similarities. I saw that same thing. I was like, he's gonna die. Oh no, his people won't kill him.
But
And
now
like
now
I
we
said,
get.
I did find it interesting that his master projects himself as a big giant, while the Emperor used to project himself all small.
Yeah,
like,
and I was
walking
waiting.
across
I was
that.
waiting the entire time
So
to
it's
talk
like
about.
complete opposites.
yeah,
I was waiting the entire time to talk about Vader and Luke's lightsaber as his precious.
yeah. Well, that and what we talked about on the way out when you mentioned the fact that Emperor was small and then this one real big. When he portrays himself, I was like, is that Thanos? Is Thanos in that room?
Yeah.
Like,
But I'll kind of lead. I'll use this as a lead in to talk about why you need to watch this in a theater. The entire scene with Han and Kylo on the bridge.
yeah. The scene.
The scene.
Dun dun dun.
The scene. The thing that
Should
the
we have
thing.
said spoiler alert?
No, at this point,
This
it's
entire
spoiled.
episode is a spoiler, so we're way past that. The thing I noticed the most and the feel that you can't get in a home theater when they pulled the sound out.
Yeah.
When-
Well, and this was, it was a movie tavern. They don't have the 72 billion speaker surround sound that they have at some of these others. But you saw it at both League City Discount Mart and then somewhere else already. So you've seen it in the better sound.
No, I saw it. I saw it at a Cinemark Tinseltown.
So
3D.
it was kick-ass sound. Like they did.
Oh yeah, it was perfect sound. But the thing is that and this is something J.J. Abrams used in the Star Trek reboot. When you see the Enterprise blow up and you pull out that space scene and he pulls all the sound out,
Yeah.
and it's like deafening quiet. That sort of thing that he does with sound editing, he did the same thing here with that bridge scene, and that was the thing that
you could hear a pin drop.
Yeah,
literally.
well, it carries the weight of what's going to come.
Yeah.
And you when you pull that out, you feel sort of like that sort of deafening silence thing where you feel your chest get kind of gripped out just in the quiet.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
You're
like that.
shit. Like you're at the top of the ride at Astroworld for the first time.
Yeah, that
you're
was
just
the
about to
thing.
drop, you're
That
like,
was the
"Oh,
thing I
crap."
noticed immediately that sold. That's what sold me on Han's presence in the movie entirely. That one scene, the way it was.
Well, and
composed.
that is a scene that Harrison Ford has wanted for years.
Yeah.
He's talked about he thought Han should have died a long time ago, and I think that the first episode of a new trilogy, because they've come out in threes, we're just going to go that route with it,
Yeah.
is a really good time to take a monumental actor, like one of the top actors of all time right now, and just kill him off leading into your new trilogy. Besides him being Harrison Ford, that character of Han Solo has been iconic since the 70s, the early 70s when the first one came out. He's been, little kids have had he's just been the man, so I thought it was really cool. I kind of, one of those predictability things, you knew certain things may have happened. You knew something big was going to happen.
Well,
You knew something big in a character development movie was going to happen.
Well, yeah, but there's parallels too because you had Alec Guinness playing Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And you take sort of the only established actor. It's kind of the same thing.
It really
too.
is, yeah.
Like you take the weightiest actor that can really pull you into a scene, and you put him in a scene like that, and you off him.
Yeah.
it's a bold statement about how we're going to treat this, you know, and I think it made me feel the same way. Like I know like the background of the actors, you know, like the Alec Guinness and Harrison Ford, like you know they've been in major roles. Like these are heavy actors, and you think like it doesn't compare to fucking Luke and Leia at all. Mm-mm. Like they're on the con scene, you know, they're not concerned about
they're not
their
Harrison
career.
Ford.
Yeah. But that scene, and also the thing that I don't think you're ever going to get in a home theater is the vastness of the like the scenes on Rey's home planet with all the wrecked Star Destroyers. Like, you know, that's a thing that I kind of felt kind of cheated on, was like clearly some shit has gone down.
Yeah.
Because you have, you know, these Star Destroyers that are wrecked on this planet, and from a distance they're gigantic, like the scale you can't even imagine. And then to see the character sort of traipsing through them looking for parts for stuff. Yeah. You know.
Well, that, and I think, you know, it was said that like the amount of crew necessary to man the new Death Star, the Mega Death Star. Yeah. Because I don't know the name of it, and it's just significantly bigger than the other one.
Like we just dug a giant hole in the planet.
1.1 billion people.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that's bigger than most like everywhere. Like over 1 billion people to man a planet that kills
it's like
planets.
but after the destruction of like Death Star 1, Death Star 2, and then like planet death, you're like, how many damn people you got in the galaxy where you could just see, like, you're like, oh, just throw another billion at it, we don't care.
But yeah, I mean, that was kind of one of the things. Even though they put the Death Star when they showed it,
clones,
right? They put the Death Star up there, then they put the
well, I mean,
Mega
like
Death
all the top generals and stuff like that. Like they obviously have different identities. They could very well be clones. Who knows? There's just a whole factory churning out. Like they got them on ice. It's just like the little sponge packet, like the dinosaur
you
sponges.
Drop in water.
Just drop it in water. Bloop, there we go. New staff.
Yeah, it's like they ship the entire vessel with like these little green beans where the stormtroopers should be standing.
Yeah,
and then like when the shit hits the fan, they just turn on the fire sprinklers, and they all just turn into stormtroopers and go.
But that epic feel through the first third act for the first third of the movie through Act 1, and then that sound, the way they play with lack of sound and I wouldn't even so much say there's not an overwhelming amount of audio in the star battle, like the space battle scenes and stuff like that.
There's not a ton because it's one of those situations to where, like they did with 1 through 3, they created all these new vessels, they created all these new lights and sparks, and the way all these things ran, and that was, you know, every sound matched one of the new visuals they were doing with the lightning coils and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and it's like why when you already have like the most simple sound in the world that everyone knows your entire like chain of movies by, and that's like someone holding a wand in their hand and like the lightsaber sound coming out. You would never change that sound.
Yeah.
So why would you change the sound of the tasers? Why would you change the sound of like the majority of these other things? The things you do want to change, the things he did change was like the gravity of a ship. Yeah. When like the ship makes your chest hurt, like the beings did in that underwater movie where they were breaching through. What was that? Or any of the latest where you have just a massive creature, and then when they open their mouth and like yell, it's like, you know, the T-Rex was in the original Jurassic Park. You kind of get that, like your chest feels the ship accelerating kind of sound.
The opening shot.
Exactly.
His plan, the opening shot.
That was a great lead-in for like just the movie.
I love the way he framed that, where all you saw was the eclipse of the ship, and you felt.
You're like we're not seeing everything we need.
It wasn't loud. It wasn't loud, but you felt
the complete of it. Yeah,
yeah. It's more like you felt the sound wash out. Like I like so much more of what he did when he didn't give you sound, when he didn't give you the way something sounded.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the sound quality. I mean, I don't count the theater I was in to be one of the top of the line audio theaters, but
yeah,
I thought it was I thought it was really good. You
Well,
had
I went to
the
I went to
volume
your-
stayed solid throughout. You didn't have ups and downs. And a lot of times when they're trying to do stuff and make its epic scale, you kind of get that like, I can't hear this conversation. I can't hear anything now because that ship just took off. And
Yeah.
this played a very good line of setting the bar. We're only going to change the volume between 6 and 7 for this movie. So, they did a really good job about that. And
Well, I actually saw it on one of the smaller theaters, oddly enough. Like, I'm used to seeing, like, typically like the 3D. Well, I don't know how they do it now, but the only other ones I've seen in 3D were in the gigantic 500-seat arena kind of things. But for like a Tinseltown, it was actually one of the smaller theaters. And
I'd say the one I saw it in would hold maybe 150 people.
it was only half full. That was the
Really?
fun. Yeah, it was only half
When did
full.
you go?
Went, I think it was like 9 o'clock. I think it was like 10 after 9 or whatever. So, I mean, like, to me, it would have been like the prime time, viewing time to see it.
We showed up 45 minutes early, and there was no one in line for the seating yet.
Right.
There were some people sitting at the bar. I stood there for about 10 minutes, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go smoke. And the whole group goes to walk outside, and they're like, seating for Star Wars at this. So we were literally the first 4 people and got whatever seats we wanted.
Yeah.
So we had like the bar seating at the dead center, right at eye level where you want to be, where you're not looking up, not looking down too much. So
Yeah.
we were in the optimal viewing place. Like, it was not the optical one. You have to see, but yeah. But I've never known Movie Tavern to be like the amazing audio one.
Yeah.
Silverado. There's sounds
Silverado
coming from places there
beats-
shouldn't be sounds coming from.
Yeah,
in that
Silverado
theater.
beats so many other
But
theaters.
I wouldn't mind seeing it in a venue like that just for the massive scope of the movie.
Yeah.
But I was actually kind of glad that I saw it in a smaller venue.
Are they doing IMAX? They're doing IMAX, right?
They've got to be doing IMAX.
Let's go see IMAX.
I could do IMAX.
You want to go again?
I'm
sure. Well, you already said you're going to see it like a billion times. I want to see it. I want to see it with the two of you, for real.
I'm down. Yeah.
Because it's kind of like one of those things, like
She's like, I don't care. I'm eating chocolate crackers.
Yeah, we should do it.
because like everybody
I'm gonna let
has
you two people talk. I'm just gonna
everybody has their different level of fan engagement with
Yeah.
it. Everybody has their own sort of way they take it. The folks I saw it with are engaged at an unbelievably deep level with
not
this
so much with
franchise.
me. She's more engaged than I am. I'm gonna watch it and
I mean, like
forget it so I can watch it again and enjoy it the second time kind of person.
ball is life levels.
Yeah, see, no.
And then everyone I went to when I went to go watch UFC over at a friend's house, everyone there was like at the same level, and everyone had it was oddly enough hearing the same gripes from that level of fan.
Really?
Yeah, like it was weird.
Yeah,
and then, like
we-
everyone else I've talked to at work as well that are kind of peripherally engaged with the movie.
Yeah.
But they know the history. Like I work with people who saw the original trilogy in theater.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that whole thing. So that was kind of like the weird take that I was like, is this really like the consensus for this movie? But talking to the two of you, it's a whole different thing.
Well, and of course I smoke. So right after the movie ended, I went and took a little piss, went outside, and started like smoking. And as you carry everyone coming out of the bathroom, like not a big theater. There was another movie letting out around the same time, so there was more people. But everyone that I saw come out kind of had the same. They were very happy with the movie overall, but I think expectations killed some people.
Yeah.
Which, like we mentioned earlier, your expectations are drummed up on your own for this movie.
Yeah.
Because they didn't leak anything. They didn't spoil anything. You really didn't get to the meat and potatoes of this movie on any night show or anything at all. So if you went to it and thought it was underwhelming, you built it up in your head a little bit too much before. And I understand that. We've had multiple discussions on drives back from work about Stargate and how they're rebooting the movie franchise and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, well, we've talked about it on the podcast. They're the original owners of the Stargate franchise are saying Stargate, SG-1, Atlantis, and Universe didn't happen. We're coming out with a new movie and starting everything over.
Even me, not as a fan of that, like I'm still insulted by that.
And then I am too, but that's for another podcast, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But, that same kind of mindset moves on to this, where you kind of expect something named Star Wars that's been as iconic as it has to just hit it out of the park. And with the way movies have gone these days, unless they see worlds annihilated and massive scenes of things flying everywhere, people are underwhelmed. And the biggest thing I can say about this movie is I think it's a great start and a great foundation for going forward.
Annihilated and massive scenes.
But I think it's a great foundation. Like, I am very, very happy with saying I'm looking forward to this entire trilogy. Whereas I was not that way with 1, 2, and 3. So they've already started in the right direction by killing people off and
I never even I watched episode 1. I think I may have made it through episode 2, and I was like, no.
And I would have expected people to be let down.
In my opinion, is like already better than episode 6.
I think it goes Empire and then this. To be honest. For me right now. So this would be my number 2 Star Wars. And that's one of those things where...
See, I did enjoy A New Hope, so I'm still going to say Empire, A New Hope, then this.
And see, that's where me, like, New Hope was good. But for some reason, just like that... For me, this is the first time that I've had the feeling like Star Wars is going to get good now.
Like Empire, A New Hope, Force Awakens, then Spaceballs.
Exactly. Spaceballs comes
that
next.
in there?
We're getting a new Spaceballs.
Yeah, that's what it's been said.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy. And that's kind of one of the things, too, is I watch Spaceballs way more than I watch Star Wars right now.
Yeah.
So as I'm kind of in that mindset of like the Mel Brooks style movie of just like over exaggerating ridiculousness.
Yeah.
So it's like, wait, I just watched a real movie. Like,
I know
when you watch
like...
4, 5, and 6, you kind of feel that way almost. Like, hey, look, no one can hit anyone with these phasers. It's all going to go exactly the right way for this group of 5 people. Yeah. You know that's going to happen. Whereas this one, I felt more like I watched a movie. Like, it developed characters more for me. And it very well could be because this is the first real one that's come out in my time.
Yeah.
An 80s kid, the 1, 2, and 3 don't count. So this is kind of the first one that I can build on like they did in the 70s. So... Yeah. I got high hopes.
Well, I had that same feeling, too, in the opening of it. Like, from the moment you get a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. In my head, not even being a fan of this, I was like, oh, this is what the ride feels like.
I was like, oh, shit, I got to read.
But that's the same thing, too. Like, you know, I didn't see 1, 2, and 3. I think I may have seen episode 1 in the theater.
I saw episode 1, but not 2 and 3.
But I didn't have that feel. Like I went, you know, I had watched. That was around. Episode 1 was coming out. I binged watched 4, 5, and 6, and then we went to the theater to go see 1. And I was like, this doesn't feel like it should.
This one feels much more like it should.
And this felt, from the get-go, from the entire sequence, the music hits, the Star Destroyer eclipsing the planet, that whole feel, land on the planet, see the scope of things. Like, I loved that entire first act.
Welcome to J.J. Abrams' Star Wars. This is essentially what I got out of the first, like 30 seconds. I'm J.J. Abrams. This is my movie.
He owned with the first Star Trek, and he definitely owned with Star Wars.
Definitely a huge fan. But yeah, let's go. I definitely want to see it with the two of you. So let's find a time. Let's go.
Sounds good.
But IMAX, maybe.
I would like to see it
IMAX
in the highest
fun.
quality.
Yeah.
Like I want to see it in the big I want to see it where the screen is bigger than it should be.
Yeah.
But not 3D.
Yeah. Okay. I'll bow down.
Maybe eventually 3D, but not
a note on 3D. I finally the catwalk scene with Han and Jon Snow. That from that point on, that was the part that made me start.
So your eyes went, oh shit, this is real right then, and you followed on 3D good from that point on.
Oh wait,
yeah, because I stopped trying to focus.
Oh, it was Prince Valiant from Spaceballs. He had a big ass nose. Yes.
I stopped trying to focus on things, and then I noticed maybe 10 minutes after that scene ended, I was like, oh, this is what 3D is supposed to feel like. You're not supposed to try to focus on stuff. You're supposed to it's like a Magic Eye poster. You just cross your eyes and hope for the best.
Yeah. Well, and that's my problem. And you know,
they try
if you
to
want
force you to focus on one.
If you want practice with 3D, the best place to go for that is Moody Gardens.
Dude, okay, so 3D did get me. 3D did get me. There was a space battle scene.
You ducked?
No, there's a space battle scene where TIE fighters come in from the top left frame, and I actually turned my head because like, oh, what the shit is that?
Because it was here instead of there.
Yeah, because it felt like it was like on top of your face. Like I felt like someone from the row behind me was like reaching over me.
Nice.
And that was the one that got me. I was like, oh, you tricky bastards, you 3D.
But no, seriously, hit up Moody Gardens and watch some of their like nature things in 3D. They do movies all day long. The last couple of years, I've went down and watched ones, and I've seen more National Geographic style things in 3D than I have movies now. Yeah, because I usually just pick trippy movies to watch in 3D. But it really has taught me, because we've talked about it before, that scene in Sherlock where he's putting everything together and it kind of slow-mo focuses in on the things that he noticed throughout the movie. Yeah. I notice those things when I watch movies.
I hate that so much.
And, I'm not wanting to focus on the one thing they want you to look at. I'm watching, that destroyer there and this guy over here. That dude just pulled a maneuver. And, there's some shit on the ground over here. You can just pick that up and fix your problem. Yeah. Whereas they're focusing on the two people dialogue. But yeah, once you start to like drop that and you're like, you know what, I'm here to watch a movie. I'm not here to figure out the puzzle. 3D works a little better for me.
And I don't think they had any scenes that were like stand out, like this was shot for 3D. I didn't get that. I didn't either. I may have not noticed it.
And I'm kind of glad they don't, because when you watch a movie that's not in 3D for a scene they wrote in 3D, you're like, that's stupid. Yeah. Like that shit did not just hit me in the face. I saw it stop. Yeah. So
where friggin' Wolverine's claws come right out and you're like, that didn't need to happen.
Although I've tried to pet multiple dolphins at Moody Gardens.
Well, I think that has more to do with the condition in which you go to watch the movie.
It may be. Who knows?
Flipper. All right, we had to wrap this up.
I think we're good.
All right, you good?
I got to co-produce again. Huh?
Well, we got into a little bit of a battle. I do want to address that. as any people who are passionate about anything are going to do. But that's why I want to go see the movie with you, because I know you get that feel. It's like I said before, it's like going to watch hockey with Canadians. Yeah. Go watch soccer with Brazilians. You're going to love the sport even if you have never seen it before. So it's kind of that thing. You kind of get the vibe of whoever you're with, the feeling of whoever you're around. But oddly enough, the people who I went originally were just kind of like, yeah, there was foot stomping, there was cheering, and then there were just scenes where it's like, what? Yeah, like, huh? There was a lot of confusing scenes. So yeah, we should probably do a follow up to this after we see.
Well, I'm sure once Kyle watches it, he'll have things to say. So yeah, we'll be able to touch on it again.
Although we won't care about what he says.
Yeah, if we all watch it again, we may pick up on things or notice some things here or there. So it'll be a topic of discussion moving forward, I'm sure.
I think Kyle's input will be like, Finn's my homeboy, right? Something like that. Anyway. Yeah. Anyway, I guess until next time, we'll do a follow up on this, and we'll probably dedicate a lot of podcasts to this movie, more just because.
Oh yeah.
And if you haven't seen the movie and you sat through this,
thank you.
Yeah, I guess
you should find out what time Kyle left and document that in our. That spoilers start at that time.
Oh yeah, it'll be in the description.
Yeah,
it'll be in the description.
That's for you people.
If you listen
for the people that didn't listen to it, that read it before they started listening.
Yeah, if you click the link and you don't read the descriptions,
it's your own fault.
And you sat through it, even though
you knew we sent someone out of the room that didn't want to get spoiled. It's your own damn fault.
Yeah. So, LOL.
Till next week. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you call them.
Yeah, it's the night before Christmas.
Right, the night before.
Yeah.